Thank you for joining our Empower Platform Engineering with Rancher Prime 3.1 webinar. We will get started with the presentation in a minute. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the question section on the control panel.
All right. Thank you for that. My name is Mark Abrams, and I am a domain solution architect here at SUSE. I came to SUSE through the Rancher Labs acquisition a few years back, and I'm excited to be here today to share a few, I am excited to be here today to share with you the details of Rancher Prime. Once I get my mouth working, I am going to present for about 35 or 40 minutes, and then we'll answer some of your questions, and there will be a little survey, I think. Did you want to present that, talk about that now?
We'll launch it at the end. For anyone who stays till the end of the presentation and answers the polling question, you'll be entered into a raffle to receive a gift from SUSE.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. A few of my colleagues are here today as well to answer your questions. Please feel free to post your questions as soon as you think of them. You don't need to wait until the end. We will, however, not be responding to your questions until the end, but feel free to post them anyways. So with that, Rancher Prime is the open interoperable container management solution from SUSE. You may know Rancher as a Kubernetes distribution, Kubernetes distribution provider, and a Kubernetes cluster management platform. You may also know SUSE as a Linux operating system distribution. Rancher Prime is an enterprise solution, of which the Rancher project is just the foundational component. Rancher Prime includes support for the operating system, the cluster management platform, the Kubernetes distributions, security, storage, and a whole lot more. There is a community release of Rancher, and it is just one of SUSE's contributions to the Kubernetes ecosystem. The community release and the enterprise releases for Rancher Prime are the same code base in GitHub. Rancher has over 23,000 stars and nearly 3,000 forks on GitHub. As the foundation of Rancher Prime, our flagship Kubernetes management platform is one of the leading solutions used globally by enterprises of all sizes. Of course, you don't have to take my word for it, because Gartner analysts provide an independent endorsement of SUSE's ability to deliver at scale and meet evolving needs in container management. SUSE is recognized by Gartner for its heterogeneity and flexibility, for avoiding vendor lock-in and supporting a wide range of Kubernetes distributions. This positions SUSE as a go-to provider for enterprises seeking cloud-native transformation. The content validates the comprehensive capabilities of SUSE solutions. As you can see in the graphic displayed on this slide, SUSE is a leader in container management solutions. So upstream in open source software refers to a code base that is upstream, or we could say precedes in a hierarchical lineage a related code base. This is the case with the Rancher Management Server and Rancher Prime. The code base, as I mentioned before, of the management server is, of course, open source. The community, and especially those organizations that desire a more do-it-yourself approach, use the upstream code and will always have access to the bleeding edge development and latest version of components through the upstream source. This chart shows you what's included in Rancher Prime. Enterprises that subscribe to Rancher Prime get a downstream version from the exact same code base after it has been stabilized by the community and further tested by the SUSE Enterprise Container Management Engineering team. The code hasn't been modified downstream. It's just had a little time to get more tender love and care. And the tender love and care is what leads to a stable version, which is then packaged and released for Prime subscribers. Now, as the upstream code changes, patches are necessary to fix bugs and enhancements are applied to the code base. SUSE will create the patches and monthly updates to the distribution, which will be made available to Prime subscribers. The code changes are available to the community as well. However, part of the value of Prime is that we create packages and a distribution of those changes more regularly for our subscribers. Community is responsible for managing and packaging and rolling out these intermediary fixes for themselves. In addition to the distribution advantage, Prime subscribers have access to our secure supply chain and bill of materials. Rancher Prime subscribers want assurances that the software has not been compromised along the way from its host location to their internal systems. If your business cares where the software distribution is coming from, Rancher Prime is for you. The Rancher Prime subscription also entitles you to the Rancher UI extensions. This includes integrated access to tools like Harvester and Elemental, as well as the ability to build custom extensions for a truly unique enterprise solution built on the foundation of Rancher Manager. Now, as a Rancher Prime subscriber, we invite you to also collaborate with our product teams to develop future functionality within Rancher Manager and the Rancher Prime portfolio. And of course, Prime subscribers ensure their business is running smoothly at all times with Prime support. Prime support is a global 24/7 support for the Prime portfolio. There are even options to further assist your enterprise with onboarding and enabling your team with consulting and professional services. All right. So in addition to great support, Rancher Prime features a full suite of solutions for operations teams to provide a robust platform experience to their customers. On top of trusted delivery and lifecycle management, Rancher Prime includes access to virtual clusters, observability tooling, a curated and optimized application collection, cluster API standardization, security tooling, hyper-converged infrastructure, storage, and Kubernetes distributions. Let's take a deeper look at each of these Prime subscriber benefits. The lifecycle. The Prime lifecycle is a significant feature of technical support. Over the years, enterprises have come to expect long-term support for a wide range of software and especially for operating systems like Linux. We have been doing it for years with our Linux distributions. Since Rancher Prime is a production grade solution for the same data centers and locations that run Linux, we have added to the Prime package a long-term support option. So with Rancher Prime, you will get validated and production-ready releases of Rancher, ensuring the smooth operation of your mission-critical platform and workloads. You will get critical security updates and patches throughout the lifecycle. You will get production releases of Rancher quarterly. You will also get alignment with Kubernetes upstream, which means you get the latest innovations quickly and safely. Rancher Prime long-term support is 24 months total for each version under LTS Prime. In addition to Prime LTS, Our Kubernetes distributions of RKE2 and K3S have LTS core support, which is 3 to 5 years. This provides a stable solution for edge deployments with long periods between patches and upgrades. Now, most data center use cases would not wait this long to upgrade and roll out new versions of Kubernetes. Here's a visual representation of how long-term support would look over several years' time. So let's say you begin support this year in December. You can see that full support goes for about 6 months. At that point, maintenance support kicks in for another 12 months, and then extended support kicks in. You can see with this approach that you would be covered for 24 months. That's plenty of time for enterprises to plan and roll out upgrades so that you will begin a new support cycle of 24 months on the next LTS release of your Rancher Prime deployment. I'll just give you a moment to take this in and to grab myself a little sip of water here. So 24 months, this is really significant. So I'm going to summarize one more time. When using Rancher Prime, we offer long-term support. There are specific long-term support releases, and for each LTS release, you will receive 24 months of coverage, which is a long time in the modern cloud-native space, where we are seeing 3 Kubernetes minor version upgrades per year. It means you're covered for the equivalent of 6 release cycles in Kubernetes terms. Virtual clusters. All right, let's take a look at virtual clusters. This is an integral feature for Rancher Prime. Virtual Kubernetes clusters allow you to optimize infrastructure and improve flexibility. They are perfect for organizations that require multi-tenancy of clusters. So for example, Kubernetes as a service. Virtual clusters allow for more clusters and development environments to be spun up quickly, thus reducing costs and increasing agility. Virtual clusters also enable efficient resource allocation, allowing teams to manage their own clusters without affecting the overall system. Virtual clusters can also benefit AI and ML ops solutions. They do this by reducing costs for running AI and ML workloads. Virtual clusters can be set up to efficiently utilize resources for training and deploying ML models without the overhead of physical cluster setup. Our implementation of virtual clusters can be found in the open source K3K project on GitHub. Functionally, they use the nodes of an existing cluster, giving end users full access to the K3S distribution of Kubernetes and its configuration. So if you have a need for supporting multiple clusters in a multi-tenant fashion, you're going to love what we've done with virtual clusters. Observability. Now, as you may be aware, this year SUSE acquired an observability solution which is being integrated now with Rancher Prime. The observability company we acquired is StackState, with a product by the same name. After the acquisition, as we have done before with other projects acquired by SUSE, we moved the code base from closed source IP to an open source license. StackState has long held that the goal of observability is not collecting data, but rather to derive actionable insights. Obviously, we need data, we need to collect data, and that's foundational to observability, but the data is really table stakes for observability. What you do with the data and how it enables you to act and how it provides you with meaningful insights is really the point of observability tooling. So with StackState, we recognize the 3 pillars of observability: metrics, logging, and traces. And it's on these pillars that we enable the best out-of-the-box and extensible solution for observability within Rancher Prime. Now, this is a common site for Kubernetes monitoring. It's a dashboard with lots of information. Cool. But what should I do with that information? The graphs obviously have their uses, but there's still more value available if you know how to get at it. To really take advantage of the data, excuse me, to really take advantage of the data, you need a few important things. One of these is alerting. Triggering alerts for concerning and extenuating conditions will give you actionable information. For example, if your average CPU utilization is greater than a certain threshold, or if there are excessively failed login attempts detected, or if you could see in the last example, there's an alert fired when there are traces that suggest a problem with a web server, 500 server error. I'm sure you get the idea. And there are probably a dozen more you could derive for your own solutions in just a matter of minutes. Your observability solution should help you troubleshoot unknowns and warn you about common issues that you've already identified. So if those three initial pillars aren't enough, of course you can add more data for more insights that are relevant to your business. StackState goes beyond data collection, graphing, and alerting. With our observability solution, you get contextualized topologies for really clear insight. StackState gives you the ability to correlate data points over time frames. Correlation matters because in order to really use the information you observe, you need to weave a coherent story from different data types for different components coming from different sources. This is tricky business, and even more complicated is getting that information all in the right chronological order. Which data and sequencing are the key elements to analyzing problem timelines effectively, leading you to a faster resolution of issues at hand. The focus on data correlation boils down to two key reasons. First, efficient troubleshooting. When data is correlated, it's easier to spot patterns or cause and effect relationships. This speeds up pinpointing the root cause. The second thing is improved system operations. So understanding how different parts of the system interact provides valuable insights into system behavior and potential bottlenecks. StackState observability is included in your Rancher subscription. The Rancher Prime application collection. So enterprises do not build and sustain distributed infrastructure without cause. The infrastructure is merely there to support the applications which run on it. Your enterprise, of course, has its own in-house software applications, and we also recognize that there are many cloud-native applications in the Kubernetes ecosystem which get deployed into your infrastructure. With this in mind, we have created the Rancher Prime application collection. This is a security report for Apache API 6 coming from the Bitnami codebase. The Rancher Prime application collection, excuse me, the Rancher Prime application collection is available only to Prime subscribers, and it is a curated collection of common ecosystem applications with an eye toward removing as many vulnerabilities as possible. So if you've ever run a vulnerability scanner over one of these ecosystem applications, there's a good chance that you've been surprised, or maybe not surprised, I don't know, by the sheer number of issues packaged into the solution. And that's what I'm showing here with this API 6 scan, right? Is that what you can see here is there are quite a number of vulnerabilities in all categories and even some that are critical. Bitnami is well known for going for, the ecosystem apps. It's a place to go for ecosystem apps, but how do they get there? Who's managing them? Who takes ownership when a vulnerability is found in one of these prepackaged apps in the public domain? In the Rancher Prime application collection, the applications are continuously updated with 0 or near 0 CVEs with daily patches and rebuilds within hours of official upstream updates. If there's a CVE, not 0 CVEs, but 1 or more in an app collection app, it's because there is not yet a fix for that, or it is a 0-day that was just announced. The collection is hosted in a secured and OCI compliant distribution platform. We target SALSA level 3, which is the highest level of supply chain security. We provide software bill of materials in both Cyclone DX and SPDX format, and the containers are signed. The collection undergoes continuous vulnerability scans plus antivirus scanning at build time. And the service is backed by a powerful metadata service REST API. We host images with multi-architecture support, including ARM64 and x86-64. You can see this one's ARCH64. We strive for minimal sized OCI images, and to achieve this, the containers are built on top of a SUSE base container image. We also package each application with sane defaults so that you can quickly get up and running. This is the same application from the app collection as opposed from the Bitnami site. Within only a few months of the availability of the app collection, Rancher Prime customers are rapidly adopting the solutions and increasingly use this resource to build and operate the world's most cutting-edge technologies. The app collection is not just a tool, it's a strategic asset in a modern enterprise's arsenal, ensuring that innovation remains both swift and secure. As the digital landscape continues to evolve, the ability to seamlessly integrate such powerful capabilities will define the success of IT strategies across industries. Some of the applications we're currently working on include Grafana, which is a multi-platform open source analytics and interactive virtualization web application. Harbor, which is an open source registry for securing artifacts with policies and role-based access control. Harbor ensures that images are scanned and free from vulnerabilities and signs images as trusted. And then Kubeflow is a project dedicated to making deployments of machine learning on Kubernetes simple. It's portable, it's trying to make them simple, portable, and scalable. So that's the app collection. NewVector. I'm sure you've heard of NewVector. Whoops. It's a major component of the security tooling that comes with Rancher Prime. All right, we can skip to the next. One of the challenges for SecOps in the new cloud native landscape is that they have experienced a loss of visibility and control inside container orchestration systems, and that includes Kubernetes. So with NewVector provides full lifecycle container security in these environments. With NewVector, security goes beyond just vulnerability scanning, which is something you see commonly in a lot of the security tools that are out there. And it's necessary, but it's not the only thing. Runtime protection in Kubernetes is another layer of security that's critical to production operations. So even if you have a cloud security solution today, NeuVector can provide additional protection to all of your Kubernetes environments. If you visit the NeuVector Git repo, you'll see that there are now release candidates for NeuVector Prime version 5.4. NeuVector version 5.4 will have enhanced integration with Rancher Prime, building on the Rancher Prime UI extension released earlier this year. NeuVector Prime 5.4 will now embed scan results directly into Rancher Prime resources like pods and nodes, along with a scan button. Version 5.4 also introduces a new compliance reporting framework, expediting the availability of new and updated compliance reports, things like DISA and STIG, without requiring a NeuVector version, without requiring a new NeuVector version. 5.4 also introduces DDoS network attack protections, triggering alerts and blocking when thresholds for maximum connection rates or bandwidth usage are exceeded. So the end result is you can continue to count on SUSE to deliver the container security you need to manage your entire cloud native infrastructure with confidence. Here's a visual of some of the UI enhancements that you can expect to see soon in Rancher Prime. Between NeuVector and the stack state integrations, you may notice there is a pattern forming here in which the components of Rancher Prime are being integrated with the Rancher Manager UI through the extensions framework, which is leveraging, of course, SUSE's long history with packaging distributions to make the solutions that you need far easier to work with than they would be if you just use the community version alone. Harvester. So Harvester is an open source hyper-converged infrastructure solution with a foundation in cloud native orchestration. Hyper-converged infrastructure, or HCI, is a software-defined system that combines compute, storage, networking, and virtualization into a single platform. It uses virtual machines to create abstractions of each component, which are then contained within commercially available hardware, meaning you don't need to buy special hardware to use this open source hyper-converged infrastructure. All the software we produce and support at SUSE is open source. I've talked about it a lot, so I think I should explain what is open source. What does this mean? Well, literally, it means you can view the source code, but practically, it means a lot more than that. Not only is our code not proprietary, we follow and utilize what they call open standards, which means no vendor lock-in and no proprietary hardware. The body of open source software, especially when designed using open standards, it could be looked at as like a giant box of Legos, a software, of course, but software Legos. SUSE has mastered making useful software usable by building distributions for 30 years. Now, a distribution is a thoughtful and human-centric consideration for combining the building blocks. Some of the standardized building blocks in Harvester include container networking, container storage, and cluster API, all of which have a specification and standards that came out of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, also known as the CNCF. So we embrace heavily the open standards and open source. So Harvester is a modern technology that stands out. Well, why is it modern? What makes it stand out? Well, Harvester takes a containers first approach to HCI. It still enables you to operate virtualization and also to run containers and VMs side by side. An end user may not know or care that Harvester is a containers first approach. However, for enterprises that are seeking to modernize, the team that manages a containers first HCI will certainly be more agile and fit for the containerized future that is taking over cloud data centers and edge solutions everywhere. At SUSE, we've been doing virtualization for over a decade, and in which KVM, Kubernetes, SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, and related technologies are more than 10 years old. And the only less mature component in this hyper-converged infrastructure solution is the Harvester UI. And it's just a UI, right? Harvester is included with your Rancher Prime subscription. All right, let's see what's next here. The cluster API. So the cluster API is a community developed specification for configuring the hardware infrastructure and cluster spec, which compose your Kubernetes clusters. At Rancher Labs, when we first launched the Rancher Manager, we realized that in order to manage multiple Kubernetes clusters, we had to create a set of custom resources, the CRDs in Kubernetes terminology. We needed those to manage the clusters and the infrastructure both. The challenge is a cluster doesn't know anything about itself, and obviously knowing details of the cluster under management is critical to owning and managing multiple Kubernetes clusters. So originally at Rancher Labs, we built a RESTful API to interface with the clusters and the infrastructure underneath them. We built this on the Docker machine drivers. But it was also the early days of Kubernetes. So in the early days of Kubernetes, REST was still the recognized standard for API interfacing. And for some things, it still is. We also, at the time, we built interfaces under the Terraform and Pulumi projects, which could then communicate with our RESTful API. And those solutions are still available. The thing is, over time and due to massive global adoption, the Kubernetes community realized that we need a standard for interfacing with the cluster itself. So the result of this realization is that a few years ago, the special interest group SIG-CAPI formed, and we now have a beta version of the cluster API. This cluster API is currently being integrated with Rancher Manager. Well, any CAPI provider, so the cluster API is broken into providers, and then as you would expect, anybody who hosts infrastructure will have a CAPI provider specification for how to build out their infrastructure, but it's a standard way to do it. And so while any CAPI provider should work with Rancher, we're also certifying the providers to give our customers a better guaranteed quality of service when using CAPI. I think CAPI is the future of infrastructure provisioning for Kubernetes clusters. With CAPI, infrastructure as code's not just an idea, it's really something that the SUSE customers are actively doing today, and it's something that I think really can happen with the cluster API. Let's see what's next here. Longhorn. So Longhorn is you've probably heard of Longhorn. It's a block storage solution included with your Rancher Prime subscription. The Longhorn Data Engine version 2 is currently in technical preview. And we recognize that you may have additional storage solutions that you want to use in addition to block storage or Longhorn. That's great. If they work in Kubernetes, they will work with Rancher, and you can pull them into Rancher through Rancher Prime. In the upcoming release of Longhorn, you can expect seamless volume backup and restore operations between the version 1 and version 2 engines of Longhorn. You can also harness the power of the storage development. It's the Storage Performance Development Kit, SPDK, and this is going to elevate overall performance of Longhorn. This new release also significantly reduces I/O latency while simultaneously boosting IOPS and throughput. So of course, Longhorn is included with Rancher Prime. What else we got? Rancher Kubernetes distribution. So SUSE has 3 CNCF certified Kubernetes distributions. Of course, you can use any, you can use Rancher to manage any upstream CNCF certified Kubernetes distribution. This includes the Rancher distributions as well as managed distributions like EKS, AKS, and GKE, as well as others. Our distributions include the legacy Rancher Kubernetes engine, and then the 2 you see here, RKE2 and K3S. RKE2 is the secure distribution built with insight and guidance from the federal government, and K3S is the lightweight and simple to use distribution which we donated to the CNCF. I could probably dedicate an entire webinar to present Kubernetes distributions. So for now, let's just note that Kubernetes support is included with your Rancher Prime subscription. And I think we'll leave it at that for today. So I am very excited to share that we have a supported Rancher API. As I mentioned, the cluster API is the future for infrastructure provisioning. The Rancher Kubernetes API is for interfacing with Rancher resources inside a cluster. Also, I mentioned there's a desire to move beyond RESTful APIs, and the obvious solution is to use the Kubernetes API. The Rancher Kubernetes API allows users to manage Rancher in the same way that they manage Kubernetes. Users can interact with the Rancher custom resource definitions via the Kubernetes tooling. So for Rancher Prime subscribers, there's convenient documentation via kubectl explain, including an interface with the UI, which is available from any resource page within the Rancher Manager. One of the things that we see very often as we assist our customers on their cloud native journey is that many of you want to build your platforms customized to your enterprise. I mean, why not, right? If it's not obvious to you yet, let me state that Rancher Prime is ideal for doing just that. Here's why I think Rancher Prime is ideal for platform engineering and DevOps teams. You get regular updates every 4 months to ensure Kubernetes environments are current and also secure. You get built-in security measures, including SALSA certification and a software bill of materials integration. Rancher Prime helps protect against vulnerabilities and enhances trust along the software supply chain. Security also includes policy and exception handling for north-south and east-west traffic inside the cluster. The integration of Kubeflow simplifies the deployment and management of machine learning models, enabling rapid innovation and enhancing productivity. And with extended lifecycle support, your customers, the platform engineering team's customers, can rely on long-term stability and security for the critical workloads and operational efficiency. So we've talked about a lot of features of Rancher Prime today. I'm hopeful that one of the biggest takeaways from this presentation is that Rancher Prime has the ability to manage all of your cloud native assets everywhere. Our customers use Rancher Prime as their go-to solution for managed Kubernetes services like EKS, AKS, GKE, as well as on-prem and bare metal in the data center, and they also use it at the edge. Cloud native is eating the world, and we're here to help you deliver the magic of distributed computing to your enterprise. So I'm going to state it one more time. Rancher Prime has everything you need to deploy, run, and manage all of your containerized workloads. Now, before we go to questions, I'd like to make a quick announcement. We're co-hosting an event called Kube Crash next week. This is a virtual conference on open source. We'll focus on platform engineering. There will be keynotes by the New York Times and Intuit, and lots of other amazing sessions. And of course, it's all free. So I recommend that you go over and register as soon as we're done with this webinar today. You can use this little barcode. I assume you can scan that or do a screen capture and scan it later. But we really look forward to seeing you at this event, Kube Crash, and also at KubeCon, and maybe also on your turf implementing the Rancher Prime solution for your enterprise. Thank you. Let's go to questions.
Mr. Abrams, your buddy Jorn here. Thank you. Appreciate your tutelage. There was a lot there. I just came off mute because I figured you'd want a break from talking and to hydrate. And I just didn't want you to be lonely. There are several questions in the queue. If you want me to continue with this theme of giving you a break, I'm just going to read them out loud and throw them your way because there's a couple of really good ones here, and I don't know if I know the answer to them. Rushi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Rushi, asks this. For ML ops workloads, do we have GPU nodes as part of the virtual Kubernetes clusters? I kind of think I know the answer to this one, but Mark, I want to hear yours.
Sure. So GPU modes, I'm actually not sure what.
I mean, nodes. I think what he's asking is, can say, like machine learning, AI-ish kind of stuff run inside of a virtual cluster in Rancher Prime and still have access to GPU nodes?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Go. Oh,
yeah.
Good, because I said yes in the text, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, so we are able to surface the GPUs. Now, the GPUs have to be connected to the underlying Kubernetes cluster. So they would be nodes in the, we'll call it the host Kubernetes cluster. Mm-hmm. And then when you create virtual clusters, you're able to surface those then in through to the virtual clusters as well. Yeah.
All right, we're having fun now. Here's another one, and it's from the same person. Well, I'm going to probably mispronounce their name incorrectly a second time. With regards to Harvester, hang on for this question. Does it support scalable storage API or a single point of failure, like failover persistent volumes to a secondary Harvester cluster? Did that make sense the way I read it?
So I heard the first part, scalable storage API.
Yep.
And
I think when he wrote single point of failure, can that storage, can we do persistent volumes and then fail them over to a secondary entire Harvester cluster?
So I don't know, to a secondary Harvester cluster,
that'd be a tough one.
I do not believe that would be the case. But within a Harvester cluster, we use Longhorn, and Longhorn is, as I said, it's a block storage solution, but it replicates data across the nodes in the system. So when you're using Longhorn, you're automatically replicating the volume data, or not. I mean, you could probably set it up so that you're not replicating, but the idea is that you would be replicating your storage data across to all the nodes in the cluster. With Harvester being container first, of course, we're able to run the storage in that way. So the hyperconverged infrastructure storage for Harvester itself is through Longhorn, but you may bring another storage provider. Let's say you want to bring Portworx into the mix for Kubernetes clusters that are running in in the hyperconverged infrastructure, then you would have the Portworx storage capabilities and what they bring to the table for replication. Between clusters, so between a harvester cluster, one harvester cluster, and another harvester cluster, that solution would have to be replicated at the hardware level. So,
Right.
so the hardware has to be being the thing that's replicated across, and then potentially pulled up into a new cluster. So more like a DR scenario, it sounds like.
Yeah, so
I
things
hope
that
I
we're kind
answered
of
that
used to doing in
question.
IT for the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
This one was typed in, and I think we know the answer to it too, and I want to read it out loud so that everybody can hear it. I'm going to read the whole question, Mark, so you can take it in. It says, we've been seeing a lot of discussion about running Kubernetes on top of things like OpenStack, for example, leveraging Ironic for bare metal provisioning. Is Harvester a drop-in for this OpenStack use case? Is it a swap out for Proxmox or the product formerly known as VMware vCenter before Broadcom did? I know the answer. It was also typed in the response, but I'd like the audience to hear your response because it is a very good question, right? I can see where people can go that way.
Well, why don't you share your answer?
And it was typed. So, and one of our colleagues already sort of typed this too. And I think I like the opening of this. Harvester isn't intended to be a substitution for, like, hey, choose Harvester over this or over that. Like that's not the tip of the spear of what we're trying to do with Harvester. Harvester is an HCI. It's fantastic. It generally is reaching for making sure that you're able to do cloud native kind of deployments, right? In the end, you're going to have something Kubernetes, something very Kubernetes-like. Now, if it fits a use case, for example, if people are using VMware solutions and vCenter in that way, and they have, a headache in their tummy or a tummy ache in their head about that, and they can see that Harvester can solve that particular problem for them, then go for it. But from a marketing standpoint, we're not marching out there going, throw all your vCenter clusters in the river. That's not what we're trying to say. There's lots of good use cases for an HCI like Harvester. I'm a fan of it. I think it works really, really well. But there's not there's not that this replaces this or that replaces that.
Yeah, it's I would agree. It's hard to say that it's an exact drop-in replacement because I don't even think those other virtualization or hyperconverged infrastructure solutions are drop-ins for each other.
No, right? Yeah, they're right. You can't go to the market and say, you can't just throw all your VMware stuff in the river and pick something else. It's
right.
They're all. It really is use case driven, and you can tell we're being very careful with that language.
One of the use cases we're really seeing with Harvester is for organizations that are moving to cloud native and want to continue to run virtual machines side by side with containers. Harvester, because Harvester actually the hypervisor portion runs, the virtualization portion runs in containers. So you're actually able to run containers in the Harvester cluster itself as well. So you could literally just stand up a small Harvester cluster and use it as a Kubernetes cluster and run it. And actually Rancher Manager can manage Harvester clusters as well as Kubernetes clusters. But you could also, another use case might be create virtual machines and create Kubernetes clusters within those virtual machines in the way that you do it with one of those other tools that was mentioned, whether it's Proxmox or VMware.
It's sort of a 2024, 2025 way to do these things rather than that long journey that we took starting in the 90s to get where we are.
But it was necessary, right? It was VMs had their place because we were in a situation where developers, and I'm one of them, I came from a development background, right? And let me tell you, it worked on my machine all the time. And then, I'd throw it over the wall and all of a sudden, uh-oh. So virtual machines really, they really helped us move our applications to production. They were necessary. there's a lot of overhead with those. And so that's why we're moving to containers. But you can't, we can't be revolutionary in a data center and just go, all right, we're going to containers. Everybody leave their virtual machines, we're done.
We can't?
Yeah, oh no.
Ronald, I hope we answered your question. And if we didn't, you could ask it again, reply back to the invite to this and call us bad names, or like the answer said, go check the docs. It lays that out pretty cleanly. Somebody, Chitana, asked this. This is a pretty quick one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your application development workflow is powered by Opinio, right? Does Rancher Prime cover Opinio? And I'm going to absolutely make Mark answer that question.
All right. So the answer is no, but we have stopped working on Opinio. So Opinio is still open source. It's still available. It's not something that SUSE has been contributing to of late. We're an open source company, right? So we have a limited number of engineering resources, and we had to make some decisions about where to apply those resources. And many of us here really loved Opinio and where it was going, but we just didn't have the resources to continue developing it from the SUSE perspective. There are still people from SUSE who are contributing to Opinio, but it's not something that SUSE itself is pursuing, and thus it's not covered.
Yeah, one of the big SUSE partners has picked up Opinio because they love and care for it and are running with it.
I think that's true. So we do have a partner who's actively evolving that tooling. And what we're really seeing is a lot of a variety of DevOps tooling. So there's all these different IDEs, people using everything from VS Code to Lens to you name it, right, to do their development. Rancher Desktop still out there. I don't know if people are still using Docker Desktop, but there are all this different tooling. But ultimately, the dev teams and the DevOps teams are going towards GitOps model, and so we've kind of moved more towards trying to stay in sync with where GitOps is going, and less so from the IDE perspective, and sort of where the developers are touching ground here. Thanks for that question, though.
And there's couple more things that are in the, I'm sure you can see the question section too. And it was basically Ronald saying, yes, he liked our answer. So good. That was, thus endeth the written QA that I can see now. So I think that's the time where we tell everybody, get your questions in, or Jamie will usher us out of the room. Otherwise, we'll just nerd out forever. And, I can only drink so much water.
Please put your questions in. I'm going to actually launch our poll as well. So please answer our polling question. This will also enter you into the raffle for the sprint.
I think I can see them. Oh, here comes my polls.
There's the poll. And I popped up the platform engineering, the kube crash slide again, if anybody didn't get a chance to grab that information.
And I was going to put the URL in the chat section, but Jamie, of course, Jamie beat me to it. So there it is in the chat section as well. So multiple ways.
Multiple ways to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jamie, so we have this poll, and if people answer the poll, what do they win?
They will be entered to win a Thor copper vacuum insulated water bottle.
All right.
Yes. And another quick thing about the Cube Crash event, for every registrant that we have for the event, the Cube Crash organizers will be donating $1 to Deaf Kids Code. Just another awesome thing about the event.
Cool. Looks like the poll has ended. I would like to thank everybody for their time today. Let's just check real quick. Do we have any additional questions?
Ronald's back. He's very involved. I love that. Ron's actually asking, that question, right? He wants to know more about pricing. He says, I have clients who are on the SMB vCenter offerings, and naturally, everybody's kind of little some levels of freak out going on. I think Ron's specifically asking about Harvester, right? That's the topic, and how is Harvester priced? And like Mark said during his presentation, and we'll say it again, pretty much everything we do at SUSE starts with open source. Of course, we have more premium offerings, but there are ways to play with it. And I'll leave Mark to you exactly how we price Harvester.
Yeah, so I don't actually know much about the pricing, how we price Harvester.
To be clear, everybody, Mark and we're all engineers here, so we are not allowed to look at money. We're also both married, so we're not allowed to touch money. So I don't know anything about money.
But the thing is, so it sounds like Ronald's saying he has clients who may be interested. So there's a couple things that stand out to me. One is, yeah, maybe the pricing, but also we do have partner programs. And so we have partners, that do system integrations and resell and things like that. So there may be a partner program. The enterprise licensing may not really apply in the same way if you're a partner that is reselling. So that's something you might want to look into if that's how if I'm reading this correctly,
Yeah, Ron, I do investigate, reach out to us, right? That's a bunch of us who are supporting this. Miguel is here as well. He's on our team. Mark, myself, we're a team of nerds dedicated to help people in this space. So we welcome, chatting, getting together. So I'll just volunteer you up. Maybe we'll try to reach out after this webinar today or tomorrow and just see if we can help you out.
All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so thank you everybody for joining us today. And I really do hope if you're at KubeCon or one of these upcoming events that we're at, that come and introduce yourselves. We'd love to meet you and talk about
Mark will be signing autographs at KubeCon, so
no.
I mean, might even be another water bottle.
All right, we're done here.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.